Hello, my name is Juanita Martinez, and I will be talking to you about the Web 2.0 application, Storybird. So, what is Storybird? According to Storybird.com, it describes the product as Storybird is a unique language arts tool. We use illustrations to inspire students to write story picture books for K through 5, long form chapter books for grades 5 through 9, and poetry for everything in between. My definition of Storybird is that Storybird is a digital online tool for educators to use and encourage creativity, critical thinking, imagination, and improve literacy skills. So when we look at Storybird, I looked at the rubric, and based on our class rubric, the technology scored very high. And so here's my evaluation of Storybird based on our class rubric. Now, when we look at the contents, the TEKS, the reason I scored it as a 3 is because for number 4, since it says has an in-depth content across all core subjects, includes interventions and extensions on all grade levels, provides level appropriate assessments pertaining to each content area. It didn't include any of that information, which is why I scored it a 3. But everything else, as far as depth, user-friendly, differentiation, progress monitoring, it definitely does have all of those items under the 4 category. And when we look at the rest, the finished product, the learning goals being met, collaboration features, again, all of everything on column number 4 was met, including accessibility. The only thing was the security, no moderation of postings. And based on the fact that it's a story that they're creating, the nice thing about Storybird is that it posts not publicly because it's a school account. It only posts to you as the teacher. But again, I could not score it a 4 because it's not an outside source that moderates the posting. So to get started, here's how we get started on Storybird. When you go into Storybird, it gives you the ability to create an account as a teacher. And so here I click on, I was logged in, I'm sorry. So you can either sign in or sign up for free. I used my school Google account to create my account, and all I had to do was just click on the Google sign in. And so I will be signing in using my school account. And so here, just a brief overview of what you have. Here's your stuff. So anything that you have created is going to be here. So here's an example that I created to show my students. Originally, I was going to have them create a story differentiating between the 2 past tenses, and since that unit isn't until after our class is over, I went ahead and had to adjust the lesson that I originally had come up with. But again, so here's an example that I created to share with my students, and I gave them the link. And this was what I showed them so that they could have something to reference to. When we look at your teacher account, when you click on Studio, you can create your own classes. Since this was my first time, I didn't create it per period, I created it per subject. So adding a class is very simple. I just add a class, and then I create the class name. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through that step of creating the account. So once I created the class name, I went ahead and I created the accounts for my students. So that way the students would not waste time in class creating the account, because I know my students have always been a little slow when it comes to creating accounts because they don't know what username to use or password or things like that. And so to save that time, I went ahead and created the accounts for my students. It allows you to, there's 2 options. It allows you to either auto create accounts or cut and paste your student list below. So what I did was I cut and pasted the student list. As you can see, it was a simple first name, last initial, and then you just have to put commas in between, putting their first and last name. But when I did that, what happened was, as you can see here, it said that username is already taken, try another. And so the easiest thing for me to do, since we are in the year 2017, I just added 17 to the end of their name. And because it is such an odd number, for most of the students, that fixed the problem. The ones that it didn't, that 17, that username plus 17 was already taken, all I did was then add 1 to the end of it, and that did fix the problem. So once I created all the accounts, as you can see here, once I added the 17 or the 171 to the end, it changed it from the red that it was before to now this tannish color, so that you know that username is already working. And then your class is created. Again, that was very easy. And once I did that, I can print the information for the student. And I don't know if you can see it behind the blue here, but it also creates a slip for the parent. And then I use interactive notebooks with my students. So when they created their username, when they changed their password, I had them write their username and password that they changed it to in their notebook, so that way they can refer back to that at a later time. And so what happens when they've created the story? Here's some examples of what my students have created. Again, going back to the original lesson, so because I had to adjust my lesson, I asked my students to create a story that talked about one event that happened over one day, so that they can focus on the preterite tense, which is the tense that they just finished learning about, and the unit that they just finished as well. So I had to tell them that it was a sequence of events that happened all in the past tense. And so here's where I loved this activity, because if you notice here where it says published, I can click on this person's story, and I can see here that she started this book, but there's nothing there. All she did was select the pictures. Okay. This green check, of course, means that it's published. So all of these are their assignments that they have completed. It gives you information on when they started it, when it was updated, and when it was published. Here's the other thing. A lot of students, when they exited in class and they weren't finished, they accidentally published the story. And so they were able to come to me and say, Ms. Martinez, I accidentally published the story. I still need to edit. So I was able to go into their account and unpublish their story so that they could continue working on it. It allows you to give them a grade. Again, either letter or numeric. And then I can add private notes here for the student. Then if you notice where it says story text, this is where it gives you what is going to be on each page. And so when we look at this particular story, okay, you can see here their progress. And I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to do multiple clicks. It's all on this one page. And so, again, I can either read it again or I can create my own. And so you can see here all of the different stories that have been created. Now, what I have done is I have shared this website with my colleagues, and they have been very excited to explore. We are actually, as a department and as a PLC, are talking about what we can do with this story in our lessons. So if you have any questions, you can find me at mjuanita05@gmail.com. Thanks.